Mrs. Nicole White, Marketing Manager for the Registrar General's Department, who's representing the CEO and Deputy Keeper of the Records at the RGD. Ms. Sophia Wellington, Acting Principal Director of the Information Division of the Office of the Prime Minister. Other distinguished guests, information professionals, practitioners, media team from the Jamaica Information Service, staff of the Office of the Prime Minister, the Office of the Cabinet, the Jamaica Archives and Records Department, JARD, and that would include anyone from the board. Special greeting. Viewers from our ministries, departments and agencies, and others locally and indeed from across the world. Good morning. It is a good morning. We woke up, we're in reasonable health, and we're here to celebrate with the Jamaica Archives and Records Management, JARD, on their official launch for the RIM Month activities, Records Information Management. Now, one, I guess, wise person once said that the value of information management is never for its own sake, but to provide insight and to catalyze information. And I've learned in the last couple of years how important records management is, especially since I have been called upon to produce information. And sometimes I'm there scratching my head and I'm saying, dear Jesus, where did I put this? Where did I file this? Why is this so important? And you have to dig deep. And if you have it, you're winning. If you don't, you could be in a lot of trouble. So I'm really, really very delighted to be here this morning to share with you as we launch the RIM month of activities under the theme Envisioning the Future, Records and Information Management in the Age of Climate Change. Ladies and gentlemen, I not only want to welcome you, but I do believe we have a very special guest among us as well in the person of Dr. Paul Hector, who you will hear much about later and you will hear from later. So please, let me have a round of applause for our special keynote speaker this morning. And may I invite us to be upstanding. For Jamaica's national anthem. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. You may be seated. And now that we have made you feel welcome, I hope, and we have said our prayer in the form of our national anthem, may I invite Mrs. Alicia Litchmore to the lectern. She's the Acting Senior Archivist, Government Records Center, Jamaica Archives and Records Department. We simply say JARD. Please put your hands together as she comes with opening remarks.
Master of Ceremony, distinguished guests on the platform and in the audience, advocates of the records and information management profession, ladies and gentlemen, a pleasant morning to you all. It is my pleasure to welcome you all to this year's launch of the Records and Information Management Month of Activities and Offboarding Ceremony. This year, we celebrate under the theme, Envisioning the Future, Records and Information Management in the Age of Climate Change. This theme underscores the critical role that proper management of records and information plays in confronting one of the greatest challenges of our time, climate change. As we stand at this precipice of environmental crisis, the need for accurate, accessible, and resilient information has never been more urgent. Climate change is not just an environmental issue. It is a social, economic, and humanitarian crisis that requires holistic solutions. In this context, effective records and information management is not just about organizing information and data, but about empowering decision makers with the insight they need to take meaningful action. Consider for a moment the vast amount of data generated by climate scientists, policymakers, and communities around the world. These data hold the key to understanding the complex mechanisms driving climate change, predicting its impact, and devising strategies to mitigate and adapt to its effects. But this invaluable resource is only as powerful as our ability to manage it effectively. This is why, as we launch this Records and Information Management Month 2024, we must recommit ourselves to the principles of transparency, accountability, and sustainability. We must ensure that our records are not only preserved, but also accessible to those who need them most, whether they're policymakers shaping climate policy, researchers studying environmental trends, or communities adapting to a changing climate. Our vision for the future of records and information management should extend beyond simply reacting to changes and the challenges of today, but also should be proactive in shaping a more resilient and sustainable world for future generations. It is about harnessing the power of technology to innovate new solutions for managing and leveraging data and information in the fight against climate change. As we embark on this month-long celebration, let us challenge ourselves to think boldly and creatively about the role that records and information management can play in building a more sustainable future. Let us collaborate across disciplines and sectors to unlock the full potential of data and information in addressing climate crisis. And let us inspire others to join us in this vital mission, because the future of our planet depends on it. In closing, I want to express my deepest gratitude to all of you for your dedication to records and information management. Your work is not just about preserving documents. It is about preserving hope. Hope for a world where data and information empowers us to overcome even our greatest challenges. Together, let us envision that future and work tirelessly to make it a reality. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you.
And thank you very much, Mrs. Litchmore. Some food for thought, yes. Important role in managing information for climate change. And we hear your call to recommit to transparency, accountability, sustainability. And we also agree that we must indeed harness the technologies that are available to us so that we can continue the fight. Thank you so much for those remarks. And now we have greetings and the opening declaration of the official launch for RIM Month 2024. And I know perhaps on your program you're seeing Mr. Charlton McFarlane, CEO. He will be represented at this time by Mrs. Nicole White. Please put your hands together and make her welcome.
Thank you and good morning. As we embark on the journey of celebrating Records Information Management Month, I am filled with immense pride and gratitude for the invaluable work that each of you contributes to the organization, the Jamaica Archives and Records Department. Record management is not just a routine aspect of operations. It is the cornerstone of preserving our history, safeguarding our identity as a people, and guiding our future development. At the heart of records management lies the intricate interconnectivity between the work of the civil registry and the broader realm of managing information. Our civil registry plays a pivotal role in documenting vital events such as births, marriages, and deaths, capturing the very essence of our existence as a society. These records serve as the bedrock upon which our national identity is built, forming the basis for citizenship, legal rights, and social services. However, the significance of records management extends far beyond the confines of the civil registry. It encompasses the systematic organization, preservation, and accessibility of all types of information, ranging from administrative documents to historical archives. In essence, records management is the custodian of our collective memory, ensuring that the lessons of the past are not lost and that we have the necessary insights to shape our future endeavors. The interplay between the civil registry and record management is evident in the seamless flow of information that underpins our daily operations. By maintaining accurate and reliable records, we not only fulfill our statutory obligations, but also empower decision makers with timely insights, facilitate public access to information, and enhance the efficiency of government services. As we celebrate Records Information Management Month, let us affirm our commitment to excellence in our respective roles. Let us recognize the importance of our work in preserving our heritage, promoting transparency, and fostering sustainable development. Together, we have the power to shape a future where the lessons of the past inform our present actions and guide our aspirations for a better tomorrow. I extend my deepest appreciation to each member of our team for your dedication, professionalism, and unwavering commitment to excellence. Your contributions are instrumental in advancing our mission and upholding the highest standards of service to the people of Jamaica. Let us continue to work together with passion and purpose as we celebrate Records Information Management Month and beyond. Charlton McFarlane, CEO, Deputy Keeper of the Records, and Registrar General from the Registrar General's Department.
Thank you so much, Mrs. White. And with that opening declaration and official launch of the RIM Month activities for 2024, I think it is quite fitting that we make a little bit of noise, don't it? I just love that phrase, the cornerstone of safeguarding our history. That's how important records management is. It is helping to identify who we are as a people, keeping pace with what has happened, with the past, with what is happening, and informing the future. Thank you. Thank you so much. And we did say we're going to make a little bit of noise for that official launch. And at this time, you know, we're a resilient people. And it's interesting that when I had just a quick word with one of the members of the group that's about to come to make a little bit of noise with us, he said they were formed during COVID. And I kind of found that a little strange because COVID kept people apart. So I was interested to find out, so how did you all get together to play music and dance and drum? I'm not sure how they did that, but I guess it goes to show how resilient we are as a people. There are about 18 members in the group. Some of them are here with us this morning. They're from Kingston City, and they call themselves the Jamaican Drum and Dance Group. So if you're ready, please, are they outside the door? I hope so. Because we are ready for their cultural item, and they're going to come to share with us at this time. Are they with us? Incidentally, the name Jamaican, yes, it means the calling of the drums. And you may know of the djembe drum, yes? So I guess they're pulling on their African roots for the name of the group, and I suspect it will be demonstrated in their performance this morning. Let me know if they're ready for us. All right. All right, well, we are ready. We're going to ask you to come quickly. And of course, if there are folks who are just joining us online, a very special good morning and welcome. We are celebrating with the Jamaica Archives and Records Management, JARD. It's the official launch of the RIM Month of activities for 2024. Let's go. Djembe Khan, the calling of the drums. I'm a little curious. What are those spoons between the drums for? Oh, just to hold it? Okay, okay. I was just checking. I was like, okay. Thank you so much. May I have another round of applause for Djembe Khan. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we go into our off-boarding ceremony, that segment of the program where we wean, so to speak, some of our partners who have been part of the program and who continue to be. They're now able to go off on their own. To do the background and Records and Information Management Program, to tell us about that in the off-boarding process, is Ms. Sophia Wellington, Acting Principal Director, Information Division in the Office of the Prime Minister. May I have a round of applause for her, please?
Morning, everybody, and never have I been so happy that I chose to adorn myself in keeping with the cultural item. And I see a gentleman at the front that was similarly moved, literally, to the drums that were playing. But morning, Mr. Hector, Dr. Hector, the JARD team, Master of Ceremonies, and of course, all of our MDs here this morning as we celebrate you in coming to the end of the process in relation to the RIM program. So the Records and Information Management Program began with a big vision to transform how the government approaches and its philosophy towards records and information management. And this, of course, would facilitate improved and efficient service delivery. So that's at the core of it. How can we deliver better service to the people of Jamaica? How can we preserve our culture as we go forward? So the vision accorded with the transformation effort of the government of Jamaica, and in so doing, we would have partnered with the Office of the Cabinet in bringing the records and information policy to life. The RIM policy was approved by Cabinet, and therefore it is in 2018, and therefore it is entities to pursue the edict of the Cabinet and the ethos of records and information management. This is with a view to facilitating the seamless data exchange among government entities and, of course, our business partners as they require information from our institutions. It will establish legislative frameworks that would improve how we approach records management and, of course, ensure accessibility and confidentiality in how we treat our records. Critical to the program are key results, 5 key results areas. So as I indicated, we want to revamp the legislative and regulatory framework. We want to improve as well the organizational structures within MDAs in relation to records and information management, and of course the HR and the human resource needs of the MDAs in relation to the records and information management capacity. We want to also reform the Jamaica Archives and Records Department, the institutional framework as well as the infrastructure. We want also to implement a standardized RIM system and, of course, capacitate our key stakeholders in the area of records and information management. Operationalization of the RIM program began with a phased approach. It involved pilot testing in the Office of the Cabinet, the Office of the Prime Minister, the Jamaica Archives and Records Department, as well as the Auditor General's Department. Full implementation across MDAs is ongoing and conducted incrementally. We at the Information Division of the OPM are happy to join with JARD in congratulating the MDAs being off-boarded today. We thank you for staying the course, and we know it can be an arduous course, and taking this bold step towards a transformed government service, one which facilitates access to information by leveraging our data assets and ensuring the preservation of our national culture, as well as one that fosters transparency and accountability in service to the Jamaican public. Ladies and gentlemen, the benefits of the RIM program are numerous. I would just mention a few here. It will improve, of course, how we do business. It will improve business access and activity within a country and thereby contribute to national development. It will enhance transparency and accountability. But one of the key things that we may not see records management as contributing to is how we actually manage our operational and management risk. The records that we keep are critical to the sustenance of any entity. The benefits of the RIM program also extend to integrating communication. And as I believe it was Ms. Litchmore that mentioned, the assimilation of technology in terms of now how we assist persons to access our services in a digital way. And of course, that would lead to our creation or our enhancement of the digital society. So there's little left for me to say now, other than we thank you for being a part of the program, and we look forward to your continued effort in relation to records and information management. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Acting Principal Director, Information Division in the Office of the Prime Minister, Ms. Sophia Wellington. I'm told that we have 4 entities that are off-boarding today. Ministry of Education and Youth. We have a representative here, just wave at me. All right, and then we have the Ministry of Tourism, we have Ministry of Transport and Mining, and the Real Estate Board. I will come back to that. Right now, we have a testimonial. It's always good to hear from the users and those persons who have to carry out the task of operationalizing all of these frameworks that I know the RIM provides. And so Mrs. Demisha Marsh, who is a supervisor, records and information management at the Real Estate Board of Jamaica, I believe she's with us this morning. Yes, she's in the back. She's waving at me. Please come forward to share with us your testimonial. You know, they say the proof of the pudding is in the eating, and you have been eating. So come and tell us how it tastes. Make her welcome.
Good morning, all. Thank you so very much for your welcome. I hope everybody is doing okay. All right, so on behalf of my CEO, Mr. Philip Chambers, and the Real Estate Board, Commission of Strata Corporations, I must say that I am totally thrilled to have experienced this journey of implementing records information management in the Real Estate Board. The program delivered invaluable insights into best practices for effectively managing records and information within our organization. The expertise and support offered by the analysts at the Jamaica Archives and Records Department was extremely exemplary. Throughout the implementation process, they provided knowledgeable guidance, ensuring smooth progress at each activity stage, and that was crucial. I extend my heartfelt thanks to our analyst, Charnel Hall. She was assigned to us, she supported us, and additionally, I must say thanks to analyst Kimberly Blackwin. Even though she was not assigned to us, she really assisted us, where she could. When it came on to calling about file management and, the plan, getting the plan up, how it is that, this aspect of it works, how it is that, we actually ensure that, all areas of the organization is able to understand the plan and be able to utilize the plan. I was able to call on her. Didn't know her, she doesn't know me, but I was able to call and she was able to assist throughout. I must say a great appreciation to Mrs. Joan Brown O'Connor. Also wasn't assigned to our entity, but she unwaveringly was ready to assist, to give us all the information that we needed to execute this implementation project. And I must say, I am so happy for the opportunity I had to work with her. We started this project a little coming out of COVID, sometime in 2021. And so we couldn't meet, face to face. And I must say the numerous Zoom call, Mrs. O'Connor, she didn't back down any at all from the daytime calls and even nighttime calls. I was always at the JARD analyst, for the assistance, because I know how important it was for the organization to actually implement records and information management. And so I couldn't come here and not express, my gratitude for those long days and nights. And I know they had their entities to take care of, but they did spare the efforts. And you have gems at JARD. Treasure them, right? When it comes on to the organization and the benefit from this program, our organization now has the tools and strategies to streamline our records and information management process and to also ensure compliance as it relates to ISO standards. That's very important. And so, as we go forward, we're now looking towards digitization. I heard The previous speaker mentioned that, and we're looking forward to that, having it streamlined to the point of digitizing our records. So no matter where we go, where government is concerned, the records are easily accessible. That is very important. And now we're telecommuting, working from home, it's a new day. And so, we started this program, I think, at the right time. And so lastly I'll say I strongly encourage all departments and agencies that are not yet with the program, have not yet commenced implementation, to commence it, because it is crucial and you will reap the benefits from this. It will make it so much easier in your organization to know what exists and where they are. Very important. And so I would like, for those other agencies and departments to really get on board promptly where this records RIM implementation program is concerned. It will really increase or enhance the records management capabilities within your organization. So it was a pleasure working with all of you. As I say, days and nights, it was a true pleasure. And as we go on, I hope that, the program will move from strength to strength, and we will have the entire ministries, departments, agencies within this island of Jamaica on board, so that we can have more or better efficiency and effectiveness where our records and information management is concerned. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Demisha Marsh. Sounds like you had a few godmothers in the process, and that's great. Nothing like a satisfied customer who is able to share their experience and get others on board. So if you're not on board, you need to be in touch to be on board. And it's a wonderful time. It's a month for RIM. It's a good time. All right? We're now going to go into the oration of the citation. Mrs. Raquel Strawn Inararity, Senior Archivist, the Archives Unit, Jamaica Archives and Records Department, has the honor of doing that. So may I invite her to come? And please make her feel good. Make her feel welcome.
Master of Ceremonies, Mrs. Marlene Stevenson-Daly, Advisor for Communications and Information, UNESCO Cluster Office for the Caribbean, Dr. Paul Hector, Acting Principal Director of the Information Division, Miss Sophia Wellington, representing the CEO and Deputy Keeper of the Records, Mrs. Nicole White, staff of the Office of the Prime Minister, Office of the Cabinet, the Jamaica Archives and Records Department, special invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. The Government of Jamaica's Records and Information Management Policy is an output of the Records and Information Management Program, which is a component of the Integrated Information and Communication Technologies ethos of the Public Sector Transformation and Modernization Program, the PSTMP. The primary purpose of the Records and Information Management Policy is to provide a framework for the standardized management of official records in the Government of Jamaica, and to ensure that all activities and decisions of government are fully and accurately documented, managed and monitored in accordance with the regulatory framework and the lifestyle principles of records creation, maintenance, use, and disposal. The goal of the RIM policy is to contribute to modernizing and transforming the public service and building a knowledge society, which will be accomplished through managing, securing, and making accessible the records of the Government of Jamaica in an efficient, effective, and transparent manner throughout the life cycle, and acquiring and preserving archival material. The policy has three overarching outcomes. Policy outcome number one is aimed at providing efficient and effective service delivery that is accessible to all citizens of Jamaica, sharing data across ministries, departments, and agencies, and allowing for the ease of doing business and attracting investment. Policy outcome number two looks at increasing transparency and accountability through the creation, processing, maintenance, use, and disposition of records in conformity with local policies and standards and international best practice. Policy outcome number three is focused on the preservation of our national and cultural identity to have an informed citizenry and to attain the national development goals of Jamaica. For these outcomes to be realized, each ministry, department, and agency of government must participate in the implementation of the RIM policy, which begins with the expression of interest letter from each respective entity. This is followed by the signing of a project charter, establishing a Records and Information Management Committee, undertaking a records survey, developing the Records and Information Management Policy and Procedures Manual, preparing a classification scheme in line with the GOJ's scheme, appraising the records and developing a retention schedule, undertaking a decongestion exercise, reclassifying the records, destroying the records that have surpassed their retention period, and implementing your electronic records management system. Since the inception of the RIM program in 2015, 68 entities have commenced implementation, 12 of which are off-boarded to initiate their electronic records management systems. Despite the unprecedented challenges and delays caused by the COVID-19 pandemic and the availability of human resources, the Jamaica Archives and Records Department stands resolute in ensuring the continuous progress of the program as we work alongside our stakeholders, ministries, departments, and agencies. As the government strives to personalize records and information management within the public service, we take this opportunity to acknowledge and thank all participating entities for their commitment to the successful implementation of the RIM program, which, as we know and has been said time and time again since morning, is a pivotal, plays a pivotal role in promoting good governance, transparency, accountability, compliance, and efficiency within the public sector. So let us continue to envision the future of records and information management for the betterment of our island, Jamaica, land we love. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you. Mrs. Raquel Strawn, in rarity, for your oration of citation. You know, we're hearing similar sentiments being expressed this morning, but I do believe at the end of the day, Jamaica is the winner in all of this, whether it is from your service delivery perspective, from the accountability that you speak about, and just, you know, the best practices that I believe this is working towards. And as someone who is also in the process, what this has done for me personally is to, and this is not a testimonial, but I just sat there thinking, personally, it has really made me a lot more aware of how important it is. And sometimes we take these things for granted, and we don't necessarily make the connection and the interconnection with all of the different ministries, agencies, departments, and the private sector, and our people here in Jamaica. So it has been very good for me And what came to my mind as I sat there is a little old proverb that my granny used to say. She said, I know the same day leaf go a water bottom it rotten. So, yes, we're at 68 entities, and we know we have a whole lot more to come on board, but another one would say, one cocoa full basket. So we keep going and keep the commitment, and those that are involved in the process, I know you do it with a lot of passion. You have to be passionate, because I've had Lord, this thing difficult, man, it's tedious. Why I must keep this one for 5 years and keep that record for 7, and why I can't dispose of it? No one. It is tedious, so I salute you. Hats off. It's now time for the issuance of the certificates of achievement and plaques. And earlier on I mentioned a few entities that would be offboarding. May I invite Mrs. Princess Gordon Comack, Senior Archivist in the Audiovisual Unit of JARD, to come at this time to do this particular activity. Please put your hands together for her as she comes.
Good morning again, everyone. So we are at the point where we will be identifying or acknowledging or congratulating, rather, those entities that would have been at the task. Even during COVID, it was hard, but we're finally at this point. So my first entity that I would like to call up is the Real Estate Board, which will be represented by Mrs. Demisha Marsh and their CEO, Mr. Philip Chambers. Next, we have the Ministry of Tourism, who will be represented by Mrs. Kesia Halstead Brown, who is also a former member of the JAR team. And we have Ms. Rose Thomas, who was the Director of Documentation at the Ministry of Transport and Mining during the implementation period. But now she's the documentation and it's the She is the DIAS, Director of Documentation, Information and Access Services at the Ministry of Science, Energy and Technology and Transport. And she's also a former member of the JAR team. And unfortunately, the Ministry of Education would have also been off-boarded, but they're not here with us today. Nonetheless, persons are online, and we want to say congratulations to you as well. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. And congratulations again to all the entities who are being off-boarded this morning. Ministry of Education and Youth, Ministry of Transport and Mining, Ministry of Tourism, and of course the Real Estate Board. And you heard from them earlier on, their own experience. So give them another round of applause. And now we're going to call the drums again. Yes, to come and speak to us through the language of the drums. The Jamaica Drum and Dance Group, are they ready for us? And this should get us going just ahead of our keynote speaker, who we'll be hearing from in a moment. Are they ready? We are ready. Yes? And those entities that have received their plaques, please do not disappear too soon after, because we would like to have a group photo for posterity. It's part of the records, not true? Yes, we want to look back in another couple of years and say, okay, this group and that entity made it to this stage, and look at them now, you know, look at where they are. It's an ingenious way of keeping 3 drums together by just using a spoon. 2 spoons, he says. All right, so the calling of the drums. Please put your hands together one more time for them. The Jamaica. All right. That got us moving a little bit. Yes, and I wonder if I could do some of those moves. Huh? Not so sure. Not now. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's that time of the morning when we introduce our keynote speaker. And to do that job is our own government archivist from JARD, Mrs. Claudette Thomas. Please give her a nice round of applause as she comes.
Thank you. Masters of Ceremony, Mrs. Marlene Stevenson Daly, Miss Sophia Wellington, Acting Principal Director of the Information Division of the Office of the Prime Minister, Miss Nicole White, Marketing and Planning Manager of the RGD, and Dr. Maria Smith. Dr. Maria Smith is program manager at the UNESCO office, and here to support Dr. Paul Hector. We also have other distinguished guests here. I noticed there is a representative from the Cabinet Office who gave us support some time before, Miss McKeena McLennan. We also have other distinguished guests from the University of the West Indies, UTEC, and other individuals, viewers from the ministries, departments, and agencies, local viewers, and international viewers. I greet you warmly. Good morning. Now, I am going to share with you the blurb from a book which says, Yes, You Can. 5 steps to being a more effective CEO of your life. It states, each day, billions of white-collar workers around the world leverage cutting-edge tools, technologies, and processes to help their institution achieve success by developing and implementing strategies, operational and tactical plans. Yet many of these workers overlook the vast potential of their corporate knowledge to overcome their own struggles and transform their personal lives. That sounds interesting, ain't it? I'm just giving you a little peek into that person who wrote this text or book. Yes, You Can. It was a book written by a mindset and performance coach where you and I can be shown how to apply business principles and processes in your life to catalyze your success in every aspect of your life. Do you guess to whom I speak or of whom I speak? The author, none other than Dr. Paul Jeffrey Cuthbert Hector. He has many names, and he comes to us with many experience, years of experience. Now, Dr. Paul Hector is the advisor for communication and information in UNESCO's office for the Caribbean, the cluster office for the Caribbean, and he has over 20 years worth of UNESCO career experience. So he is a career personnel within the United Nations, but he works mainly with governments across 4 continents. I like that life. That sounds very interesting. In Africa, Latin America and the Caribbean, Asia, Pacific, and the Middle East. He does so by supporting project initiatives and policy actions through research, the design and implementation of policies, strategies, and action plans. Mainly, he promotes access to information and knowledge for development and to overcome related inequalities, particularly on the digital network. Plainly put, he has had the task to support government in addressing information and knowledge divides linked to issues of gender, language, literacy, and small island state issues, disabilities. Now, Dr. Hector, we are told, joined UNESCO through the competitive Young Professional Program since 2000. And he's also an alumnus of the J. Williams Fulbright Fellowship and the U.S. Department International Visitors Leadership Program. I know we have had a number of librarians who also participated in a similar program. But Dr. Hector did not start out there. You consider a civil engineer moving on into the management science and also in knowledge and innovation management. It is said that since 2012, he has been actively engaged in the United Nations Universities Annual International Conference on the Theory and Practice of Electronic Governance as a track chair, paper reviewer, and a member of its International Steering Committee. So our speaker has authored a number of chapters of books and conferences, journal papers, developed courses, and lectured in International Business School. He is just telling us, I'm just sharing with you, that Dr. Hector is that ideal innovator, digital transformation, urbanization developer, and we could go on and on, indicating that this gentleman is the ideal presenter to share with us as we envision the future, physical future, as well as the changing times with technology for records and information management in the age of climate change. As we emphasize this interconnectivity of effective records and information management with industries, innovation, infrastructure, climate action, and strong institutions, ladies and gentlemen, I'd just like to ask you to join with me as we welcome to this lectern, Dr. Paul Hector. Hear ye in.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Thomas, for this very warm and humbling welcome. Distinguished members, everyone, we have a protocol which has been very ably established by Ms. Thomas, so I will, without any further delay, move into my remarks. I must say that I feel very privileged to be here today. This is a very important event. Of course, the opening of RIM Month, also a time when you're offboarding persons who have successfully completed the very, I'm sure, rigorous training in records and information management. So it's really a glorious opportunity to be here, but also a fun time to be here, as we've seen so ably demonstrated by our cultural performers. So congratulations to all of those who have graduated, and I encourage others to follow in their footsteps. So during my presentation today, I'd like to talk with you about a number of things. Climate change, as we've heard, this is one of the existential crises which is facing the whole world, and particularly those of us who happen to be living in small island developing states. So I want to touch on some of the projections so we can really bring home the importance of climate change and being aware of it. Next, of course, I want to look at what are some of the implications of climate change for RIM institutions and for RIM professionals, so we can, of course, be better prepared. And of course, since we're taking a future orientation, I also want to share with us some of the tools and methodologies that can help us prepare for this future. As we know, no one knows what the future holds. It's uncertain. But there are various processes that can really help us in navigating more successfully. And then, of course, I want to touch on some of the other challenges that are happening. Demographic changes, technological changes, and of course, climate-induced changes, which will of course impact the work that we're doing. And then of course, close with some suggestions about things that you might wish to do, and also share with you some of the resources that UNESCO puts at the disposal of its member states. So first, I'd like to talk a bit about the Paris Agreement, because this is very fundamental to understanding and contextualizing this whole phenomena. Now, as you know, the Paris Agreement, it's really a legally binding document which has been adopted by 196 countries. Imagine that. This took place in December 2015 in Paris, hence the name, during the COP21 conference. Now, the aim of this agreement is to limit global warming to well below 2 degrees Celsius, with an aim, of course, to keep this a bit lower at actually 1.5 degrees Celsius. And for us, I think it's very important to note that even at a level of 1.5 degrees Celsius, the impacts of climate change really threaten the well-being, the future, the lives of those of us who are living here in small island developing states. So the 2.0 degrees Celsius temperature increase, which this agreement actually aims to achieve, it's really something very serious for us, because it means that our future can be very precarious. So we really need to take efforts on as many fronts as we can to really bring climate change, emission of global greenhouse gases under control. Now, let's talk about a bit about the sort of progress that has been made so far. Now, it's really quite laudable, the progress that has been made. The early projections of scientists called for something like a 4 degrees Celsius change. 4 degrees Celsius increase above pre-industrial levels of warming. Currently, based on the huge efforts that have been taken, we're now looking at forecasts somewhere in the region of 2.1 to 2.8 degrees Celsius. But as I said, even at 1.5, it's a very, very serious consequence for those of us in small island developing states. So while we, of course, must be encouraged by the progress, there's really a lot more homework to be done. And fortunately, as RIM professionals, we actually there are things that we can do. So, as I've said, this is really a key issue for us. And I want to touch on 4 of the sort of big impacts that we can foresee, and also talk about how they impact RIM operations. And when I say RIM, of course, I'm talking about records and information management. So first of all, sea level rise, more frequent extreme weather events, of course, economic shocks to key sectors, which are crucial for our survival, and of course, unfortunately, also some health impacts. And let's look at each of these in turn, starting with sea level rise. Now, according to the IPCC, which is the International Panel on Climate Change, 1 billion persons in coastal areas are expected to be impacted by climate change. And of course, as I said, all Caribbean SIDS are vulnerable, but our brothers and sisters who live in, very low-lying countries like, for example, Anguilla, the Bahamas, the Cayman Islands, and Guyana, they are really, at the forefront of this risk. Now, as we can imagine, of course, sea level rise is something which can flood the coastal areas. It can cause disruption to business activities. And many of our islands, we depend on our aquifers, the fresh water below the ground. And of course, sea level rise, it means that this valuable resource, it's something which is going to be threatened. And of course, if we all need fresh water. So this again is really serious for us. If we look at the Caribbean, again, based on our landscape, our historical settlement patterns, all of our capitals, which are the key economic drivers of our economies, and also the places with the most dense populations, these are all in coastal areas. And if we think about our RIM institutions, our libraries, our archives, our museums, these all can be found in capitals. And if we think about, what does the sea level rise do? So sea level rise, the salt water coming up through the soil, this is something which can really undermine the foundations of buildings. So without you even noticing it. And so, of course, this can put at risk the institutions which have been entrusted with safeguarding the records. Many of these records, hundreds of years old, and also everyday records which we need for regular life. So let's move on to a next one. More frequent extreme weather events. Now, last year, there were 20 named storms in the Atlantic. And last year, this was considered to be the fourth most active hurricane season. This year, due to El Nino and continued warming, projections are for a 50% increase in extreme weather activity during the hurricane season. So, these aren't things which are, just theoretical. And of course, more frequent weather disruptions, of course, this means disruptions to our RIM institutions. And if we think about it, we already operate in situations where there is scarcity often of funds. So when we need to divert resources to emergencies, it means that we have less resources available for the everyday activities. So let's think about economic vulnerability. In Jamaica, just like in many other Caribbean countries, tourism, agriculture, these are among the huge breadwinners of the countries. And unfortunately, these are also two industries which are very susceptible to the impacts of climate change. So, this damage, also predisposes us. So, for example, if we think about coastal erosion, the destruction of reefs, this is something which then makes it easier for even greater damage, even greater loss of, fishing grounds, the coast, etc., to occur. And again, of course, if we're looking at, again, having to deploy scarce resources away from our day-to-day activities, this is really, really quite challenging. Let's talk about health. Health is also another area which is being impacted. And one of the things that we're seeing already, people speak about it anecdotally, and there's also scientific research which supports it. We're seeing changes in rainfall patterns. We're also seeing increase in heat waves, and these heat waves can cause a number of heat-related illnesses, things like heat stroke and heat exhaustion. We're also seeing changes in the patterns of certain vectors, insects, things like mosquitoes. We hear about, for example, upticks in the prevalence of dengue. We hear about things like chikungunya. We hear about Zika. Again, all of these can be traced back to climate change. And it's not only on the physical level. Think about it. I mean, having to deal with the threat of these events, the uncertainty, the impact on your life, the impact, the uncertainty around your children's futures, the threat of these frequent storms, this is also something that can cause mental health issues, depression. We hear about the PTSD, and these are things which are very real. And of course, adverse health, it can also lead to a decline in the productivity of our workforce. So again, really, really, really disturbing, really quite concerning. At the same time, there is really hope. There are some silver linings, and I want to assure you that you as RIM professionals, you can really play a role in helping to address these challenges, both in terms of what's called mitigation and also adaptations. We've heard already the importance of access to reliable, timely public data and information. This enables our decision makers to really prepare for the future, to allocate resources where they can be most effectively used. And that is something which you as RIM professionals make possible. RIM professionals also play a very big role in terms of supporting the Sustainable Development Goals, in particular Sustainable Development Goal number 9, which deals with innovation, Sustainable Goal number 13, which deals with climate change, and Sustainable Goal 16, which looks at strengthening public institutions. So let's look first at Sustainable Goal number 9. So as we all know, RIM institutions, we're repositories of knowledge, knowledge which is relevant to industry, to innovation, and also in infrastructure. You help to capture the life cycle of technological processes. You do a very, very important job in terms of documenting failures and also successes, which really help us to inform our future actions, future research. And of course, sharing information linked to the green economy and green technologies. When we consider SDG number 13, here you have really a key role, and this is something which I'll talk a bit more about. The Paris Agreement also requires governments to keep information about their climate mitigation plans. And so, of course, here, RIM institutions, you're really on the front line of documenting, raising public awareness, and also supporting the sharing of good practices. And then when it comes to SDG 16, we heard already the importance of RIM organizations in terms of ensuring transparency, ensuring accountability, and here again, this is also another role in which you contribute. Now, let's talk about the future, things that we can do. So, Malcolm X said, the future belongs to those who prepare for it today. And I think that is something which is very potent, it's very important, it's something that we need to reflect on and also act on. So if you want to navigate in the present and prepare for the future, there are a number of interdisciplinary tools out there that we can use to examine the various ecosystems in which we live. I'm sure you've heard about things like strategic foresight, future studies, and these are some methods which we can really apply. And I'm going to talk about a little bit about some of these tools and some of these techniques. So here you can see on the screen just a few of some foresight tools and methodologies which can be used to address problems of various types over different time horizons, short-term, medium-term. Some of them are very simple, others require a bit more statistical analysis. What I'd like to do is take you through 3 of these types of techniques which I think you can apply in your organizations. So the first 2 are what are known as SWOTs and, of course, PESTEL. So I think these are very well-known frameworks. SWOT is the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities. In terms of strengths and weaknesses, these are internally focused, where you look into your own organization, you ask, what are the things that we're good at, and what are the things that we can improve on? And then the opportunities and threats. This is more sort of an external looking where you say, outside, what are the new trends? What are the new opportunities where, as RIM institutions, we can really maybe dominate, do more? And also, what are some of the threats to our survival? In the case of PESTEL, PESTEL is very much focused on the external environment, and it tries to anticipate what might be changes in the political environment, within the economic settings, the environmental settings, what are new technologies out there which can maybe challenge, provide new options, similarly in the legal and social. So things like demographic changes which might affect us. And just as an example, let's look at the area of legal and regulatory. Now, in the Paris Agreement, one of the things they talk about is something called nationally determined contributions, or NDCs. And these NDCs, they're simply just agreements adopted at the national level, which set out the commitments of each country in terms of the actions that they're going to take to address climate change, so the adaptation and mitigation programs. And of course, as you can imagine, we've heard already, you have something like 68 different organizations which have been onboarded. And so you're collecting data from a whole range of sectors, lots of records. And this, of course, this is really vital as it helps to now provide policymakers with an overview of what's going on in all of the various sectors and the various adaptation efforts. It provides also the data. Of course, as public sector organizations, you also interface with research entities. So all of that kind of data is there. And by having these records, then it's possible for you to not only see where you are right now, or rather help the policymakers to understand where they are right now, but also to make plans and projections and move forward. So again, really, really key. And also under the international agreements, these are reports which must be made every 5 years. I talk now about another one. It's called the Futures Wheel. As you know, everything that you do, every change has some other impact. And that impact often impacts something else. And so the Futures Wheel, it's a way of looking at various problem situations and then trying to understand what could be the first order, the second order impacts of these things. And I show you here, quite, how this can be done. So for example, as I said, we're now moving into a period where we have more extreme weather. So for example, one of the impacts that we can have, for example, let's say there's a Category 4 hurricane. How could this impact us? For example, this might cause challenges in terms of infrastructural damage. We can have collections threatened. And so, of course, we need to take actions. So sometimes short-term actions might involve putting more resources out, doing things like digitization, which in turn may cause certain short-time shortages in terms of the resources that are available. So if we start earlier in terms of anticipating these types of challenges, developing risk plans, doing maintenance, etc., this type of exercise helps us to understand what are the actions that we can take now for potential challenges in the future. And the last resource I'd like to talk about, it's something called the Gartner Hype Cycle. So the Gartner Hype Cycle, it looks complicated, but it's actually quite simple. It talks about how do people's expectations about technologies change over time. As we know, very often a new technology comes out, there is a lot of maybe excitement. Here is something which can really revolutionize the world. It can make so many changes. And then as people start investing into it, some persons, you find maybe initially somehow that hype, these expectations are not being able to be met. And so you have a period of disillusionment. And then suddenly people may give up on this technology. and except for maybe a small core of persons. This is what we call the trough of disillusionment. And then as people persist using these technologies, suddenly they start understanding, oh, well, here are the actual places where this technology could actually be useful. We start seeing use cases which are more practical, and people start being able to replicate the successes that other persons have had. And so we go through this phase where now this technology has become it's understood, its limitations are also known, and so we can use it more productively to enhance the operations of our organization. And this becomes very important for decision makers, because if you can understand where a particular technology lies, then you can avoid the sort of risk of perhaps investing too early, and making sure that your investment comes at a time when it is really supported by good practices and solid understanding of that particular technology. So let's talk about some of these forthcoming technological, demographical, and also climate-induced changes. And let's start, first of all, with the technological trends. We all know we're in the age of big data. Every day, in fact, as you can see here, this is from 2023, and this graphic tries to illustrate what happens within 60 seconds on the internet. Now, can you imagine 241 million emails being exchanged in 60 seconds? 18.8 million text messages. Now, I looked at the national RIM policy, and one of the things I saw, it's, emails, these are also considered to be official documents. All of these communications. We also are looking at video messages. How do we capture all of these things? Yeah? Well, fortunately, we have tools like AI. So with artificial intelligence, it is possible for you to, upload these files. You can then convert the audio to text, and this can help you to manage it a bit better, and you can even do some data mining. But what this shows is that we're living in an environment where new technologies are appearing. And how many of you here know WordPerfect? WordPerfect. Yeah? Well, I think that tells us a bit about the age of the people in the room. Unfortunately, one of the things that happens as new technologies emerge, technologies disappear. And, unfortunately, sometimes what happens is that no one is around to provide support for those technologies. And so what this means then is that records that you have spent a lot of time to develop, you suddenly can't access them. So these are some of the types of technological changes that we have to think about. Today we are moving into 3D. We hear about things like GIS, Geographical Information Services. We're now even hearing people talk about like the metaverse, where Zoom was a revolution for many persons, but now think about the metaverse, where we can somehow be interacting and we can have meetings, almost like the way we are. I mean, how do we store this type of data? And we're talking about much, much larger amounts of data. We're talking about data on the cloud. And with this, of course, here in Jamaica, 1st of December, the Data Protection Act came into force. So there are privacy considerations, there are legal ramifications for all of these things. So as RIM professionals, we need new tools, new skills, and it's really something which is worth reflecting on. Let's talk a little bit about demographics, because this is also another big change. Population changes. So here on this graph, one of the things that you can see is that in the Caribbean, we're experiencing a decline in the fertility rates. And what this means is that by 2038, according to ECLAC, the Economic Commission for Latin America and the Caribbean populations will be in negative decline. And as a result, what's going to happen is that we will be looking at populations which are aging. So currently, I think, something like around 63% on average across the Caribbean, persons are under 30 years of age. But that's something which is going to shift. So as RIM professionals, what does this mean in terms of how you're going to deliver your services? So if we're looking at an older population, maybe we need to think about physical accessibility of our buildings. If we're looking at having more content available digitally, then it means we need to have programs to ensure that citizens can, of course, have the skills to access these services. And of course, as age increases, we tend to have, a lower vision, etc. So how are we taking into account these types of accessibility needs? Because as you know, the Sustainable Development Goal, it's guided by this mission statement or vision, no one left behind. So as RIM professionals, we really have to step up. So this is one of the challenges, as you can see. And of course, as the public population goes down and we shift to a greater age, it means then also less resources, less public revenue, because now you have maybe more people taking pensions than working. So these are some challenges that we have to think about. Let's look at another change. This has to do with migration. Now, we have high levels of migration out of the region to developed countries. One of the things that they're projecting is that we will be seeing in the future more inter-Caribbean migration. We can already see some of this. We have, for example, from Hispanophone countries, Francophone countries, people moving here. Now, what does this mean for our RIM policies? If we are now having to get records from people in other countries, so for example, if we think about naming conventions, so if we look at Hispanics, for example, they have a very different last naming convention than we do in English. So if we have more people, then how do our records, how do we take this sort of cultural diversity into account? So, really something to think about. And for example, if we have people from other islands who move here, how do we make sure that we can integrate maybe, let's say, their social security or other types of information with the systems that we have here? Is there some equivalency in terms of maybe driver's licenses? Are the formats the same? Perhaps we may, as RIM professionals, need to think about having greater inter-regional dialogue, cooperation, standardization. There's a lot of standardization taking place, of course, at the international level, but again, we talk about things like CARICOM and so on. These are really important structures that we have to think about. And the final thing that I will touch on in terms of trends, so climate, again, the Paris Agreement, it talks about mitigation efforts and adaptation efforts. What can we do to, for example, reduce our carbon footprints? Of course, it's true that here in the small island developing states, we're not such big producers, but as we heard before, 1-1 cocoa. Exactly. So, and as I've shown, we really are on the forefront, and we are facing the brunt of a lot of these challenges. So it's really in our interest to do whatever we can to reduce our carbon footprint. And of course, adaptation. It's not. This is one of those slow-moving effects. You take an action today, but the result, you won't see it for some time. It's a bit like education. You start, you invest, and sometimes we see the outcome, a bit further down. So we have to. So even when we take action, we're not going to stop the harmful impacts of climate change. So we have to act and act now. So in terms of what we can do as, my apologies for this small print. So what are some of the things that we can do as RIM professionals? First of all, We need to enhance our knowledge about climate change, the Paris Agreement, and all of these other national, regional, and international frameworks, which have various record keeping and official submissions, because that is part of what we need to do in terms of supporting our policymakers. We also need to, as I said, use tools like strategic foresight to gain insights, to inform our strategic planning. We need to do things like conducting risk analyses, risk assessments of our operations, looking at things like, do we have business continuity plans in place? Have we thought about the different types of hazards and how these hazards could impact our operations? Of course, as we've seen, there is really a huge need for new skills. So we also have, as individuals, to commit ourselves to improving, training, updating, refreshing, and also as organizations. And we don't have to wait for the paid courses. There are lots of free resources which are available. And, we're truly in the age of lifelong learning. I've mentioned, at the side, the challenge of cost, access to revenues, to the impacts of budgets. So we need to be also very strategic in terms of trying to understand what types of business models, are we operating on, and also looking into issues like partnerships. What roles can partnerships play in terms of maybe giving us access to other types of resources, sharing resources, and also not only partnerships within governments, but also partnerships with other sectors, private sector, with the universities, and also regionally. So these are really things to think about. Again, as I said, greenhouse gas emissions, it's something which is everybody's business. So within our operations, what can we do to reduce our carbon footprint? So it's important to do these types of audits, analyses, and very often the public cuts go their biggest for the entities which are the ones which are least visible. So as RIM institutions who really play a very big role in helping the nation to move forward and to advance, what can we do to help the public recognize our importance? What can we do in terms of customer service experience so that when people come to us, they actually look forward to coming to us because they know that, it's going to be an efficient process. I don't need to bring, the same document, multiple times to multiple places. How can we, show that, we're really good stewards of the public's, resources, and how can we build trust and confidence and enthusiasm? How can we get more young people to say, I want to be a RIM professional when I grow up? Are we going into schools? Are we there at the, what do you call that day? Exactly, Careers Day. Are we there to say, how exciting this is? Are we sharing testimonials? What are we doing on social media to make our work interesting, engaging, informative, and even entertaining? So all of those are things that can be done. And again, of course, as I said, where there's unity, there's strength. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. We have institutes like CABICA, Accuril, UNESCO Memory of the World. How can we ensure that we're all part of these things? And in closing, I just want to share with you a few of the programs that we have. You can see here we have our Memory of the World program. This program is focused mainly on the archival types of collections. But again, by getting out, for example, documents that you have, maybe it's a letter from Marcus Garvey, maybe it's a letter from another national hero, Bob Marley, and then perhaps somehow getting this out into the public space. And even better still, I heard, the Ministry of Education, it's one of your partners, how can we get some of this material into collections? How can we use also the different opportunities that multimedia provides for helping us to reimagine and to re-see a lot of these cultural artifacts and really excite and really, make learning much more fun. So a lot of integration across various sectors. You can see in the bottom right, software is fragile. UNESCO has a program, it's called the Software Heritage Program, and this program basically seeks to ensure that different types of software can be supported not only during their commercial life, but beyond. So that, of course, that problem that many may face with technologies like WordPerfect, or persons who have floppy disks, which, these types of challenges can be addressed. Very colorful, you see something called our Futures Literacies Lab Playbook. And this is an approach which UNESCO has developed, which looks at reimagining the future, looking at possibilities, and again, and not just dreaming, but we're taking concrete steps to address potential challenges. So I invite you to look at these resources. And finally, we have something called the Artificial Intelligence and Data and Digital Transformation Competency Framework for Civil Servants. And I think this is something which is very appropriate because, again, here in Jamaica, in other Caribbean islands, we see that governments are moving towards digital governments, electronic governments. And this requires not just technical skills, but new soft skills, new approaches, innovation, initiative. We also need to perhaps reshape the cultural, the organizational cultures, and this book addresses many of these things. And so in closing, I hope that the ideas that I've shared, you found them interesting, but even more than that, I hope that they have somehow maybe empowered you and helped you to, encourage you to take action. And here at UNESCO, we're ready, we're welcome, we're longing to work with like-minded individuals in, again, addressing all of these types of challenges that we've talked about and others, and really helping to ensure that our actions make a difference in the lives of every citizen. Because it's only by concrete actions that make a difference that we can ensure that no one is left behind. So thank you for your attention, and happy to discuss with you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Paul Hector, for such a wide-ranging discourse, and you have given us, I believe, a lot to think about. We're going to open the floor for questions, and I know you're very happy to to field those questions. But one of the things that you actually went through as we put our questions together has to do with what the folks in the room, the folks who are online, what we can do to make a difference as RIM professionals. And I think you gave us quite a bit there in terms of just our knowledge enhancement. They say knowledge is power, information is power. So that is something that we can all work on, increasing our knowledge and familiarizing ourselves, for example, with the Paris Agreement that you referred to. Managing our carbon footprint, how can we do that as individuals? And doing the risk analysis that is always going to give us answers to the question, what if? What if? And quite a bit presented to us as well in terms of the foresight for strategic planning methodology that you spoke about, assessing our risks and developing plans, and also testing, very important. Another area that struck me was the business of innovating business models that will suit us in our own context here in Jamaica and certainly in the region. And of course, partnerships and sustainability, partnerships for sustainability. How can we work together, not just in the public sector, but also in the private sector, with the private sector and other social groups in our communities? Staff upskilling. I like to think that most of us in the room would see ourselves as lifelong learners. And so you're learning something new every day, and you're trying to test out these new things that you learn, and also to share the information, because that is equally important. So staff upskilling, identifying emission reduction practices, and raising awareness. And what we're doing here today is part of how we are raising the awareness of our people on the importance of records and information management. And of course, I have a career day, which is around the corner, so I'm going to throw that out to Jard, if you would like to join me in Treasure Beach. It's a little way away because it's on the south coast, but truth be told, we will be having youngsters from maybe about 20 schools within the parish of St. Elizabeth and Manchester. So I'm throwing that out at this time. And Huey is also... Yes. All right. So, talk to me after, and we can see if we can collaborate as we talk about partnerships to sharing this information. And it is within your month of activities as well. And we will have youngsters between 4th and 6th form who will be sharing with us. And it's an opportunity for you to share what it is you do and why it's so important. And then, of course, strengthening engagement with professional bodies. That's also very important. So a lot of things happening. Do we have any questions? A lot of information came out. Any questions, ladies, gentlemen? One in the back, yes? From the real estate board. The microphone will be passed around.
Good afternoon. As it relates to the list of 10 that you had on the board. Oh, sure. Good afternoon again. As it relates to the list of 10 that you had on the board, can you provide us with that list of 10 that you'd like us to think about? All right, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? One in the back to my right.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Not really a question, but a comment. Just to say, Dr. Hector, thank you so much for your presentation. I'm a librarian, so kind of a part of the RIM field, and I don't think that we place ourselves enough in the whole realm of climate literacy and climate action. And so I was really kind of inspired by the presentation today. The whole area of strategic foresight, like you said, is an area that I hadn't necessarily aligned with being able to be agile enough in this kind of perilous era we're in. So I'll certainly be touching base, because climate literacy, climate action, I really do think that we have a role that we can play in that.
Thank you so much. We have another question here? No? I have a question. I'm going to ask it. You mentioned one of the challenges being accessibility needs as far as our demographics, are concerned. And so my question is, how do we get to the older? What suggestions do you have for getting to the more mature age group? Since we are looking at digitizing and moving with the future and the trends, and a lot of these more mature persons are being left behind. What suggestions do you have in terms of a tactic or a methodology that you can reach these people? Because they also will be interacting with their grandchildren and great-grandchildren, and I just feel like they're being left behind. So that's my question.
No, thank you very much. And I think you actually gave a partial answer to the question. You talked about the about the grandchildren. You know, in my life, we've been moving from country to country probably about every 5 years. And of course, it's very exciting, but it means each time you move to a new place, you're a stranger, and you're sort of starting over. And one of the things that I found that has been very, very helpful for us as parents is our children, because they go to school, they're in classes of maybe 30 persons, and these persons have parents, and many of them, some of them are in similar situations, so our kids serve as, if you want to say, gateways to help us reach out. Of course, through work, we are also able to meet many, many persons. So I think looking at the sort of touch points, this is something which is key. And sometimes you have to think about maybe unusual partnerships. Now, so for example, partnerships with, let's say, churches. So yes, so we have libraries, of course, you're part of that network. So when people come, sometimes parents go to take their kids. So is there a little flyer that we can give out and maybe talk about a program that they can access? I did a survey recently looking at, I think we had something like 11 countries in the Caribbean who responded. It's part of something that we call MIL Cities, Media and Information Literate Cities. And in this particular survey, we were looking at libraries and looking at their engagement around the types of activities that they were organizing to build skills of citizens, looking at, for example, to what extent they provided digital collections, looking at, for example, to what extent they were encouraging content creators, whether they were poets, musicians, writers, to come in and share with patrons about what they were doing. And some of the groups, they were actually targeting senior citizens and bringing together senior citizens and providing programs where they could learn about digital skills and so forth. I think churches, that's also another very important group. Here in the Caribbean, we have histories of, for example, sports, whether it's, in Jamaica, for example, there's a lot of energy around champs. Everybody's looking at champs. Could we perhaps maybe have a little, ad talking about, the availability of a training program for senior citizens, etc. And also this sort of intergenerational dialogue. Maybe encouraging a child, maybe as part of their school exercise, you've just learned how to perhaps use a new digital tool, and as part of your homework, instead of just maybe preparing a presentation, maybe the task might be, can you teach grandma, can you teach an aunt, an uncle, how to use this tool? And I think in that type of environment, I think I don't have grandkids yet, but I think I'm much more vulnerable and willing to learn from my kids. I mean, if you don't know something, sometimes it's a barrier for some persons. But I think parents, when our kids tell us, oh, you don't know how to do this, and they're willing to show us, we're happy to learn. And I think even more so for grandkids. I mean, when I see the way in which my kids interact with my mom, it's amazing. So I think all of these, if you want to say non-traditional approaches, we have to sort of think out of the box. It's not always, I saw this phrase once. It showed this line, like you had a start point and an end point, and there was a straight line. And the comment was, the path to success for those who don't try. But for those who actually try, we know sometimes you have a target, you go, and so on. And I think in a similar way, we probably need to think about how do we engage with different types of audiences? Who are the new groups that we can talk to who can help spread our message? My dad, he used to say, the luckiest people are the people who get to meet other people. And I think it's really true, So I stop here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Hector. All right, do we have any parting shots, question, comments as we wrap up this morning? envisioning the future, records and information management in the age of climate change? No? All right. Well, I want to thank you, but you will be officially thanked in a moment because I have another little task that I have to do. And this is to invite Principal Director Wellington to the lectern for a very special presentation. This presentation is coming from the staff at JARD with all their love and with very good wishes and blessings for the person who will receive the presentation. So, Principal Director, would you come forward? Clap her for me, man.
Miss Thomas. Okay, and you will get it shortly. Miss Thomas, I want to invite you to the lecture. She was busy directing, come. She didn't realize. But I want to invite you, Miss Thomas, and I want to say this is the staff of JARD's way of showing appreciation. I'm going to lose the mic if I come around. The staff of JARD wanted to show their appreciation. And of course, you know you're the only person that can get the InfoDiv team to come out and act in a way without the preparation, without anything there, but we will give, we'll defer to you. This is just a small token from the team to say thank you. This is a visionary. This is the vision. Rim is a vision of Miss Thomas, and she never done bother with until the rest of government fell in line. So her role has been extremely valuable in the progression of our records and information management program, in how we even think now. I heard Dr. Hector talking about, hey, the technology is actually going to become obsolete. So our classification systems may need to change, these things. So I am thanking Ms. Thomas on behalf of the team. Ms. Thomas, can you hold out your hand and receive for me? It is very heavy. Come on, man. They want a good picture. But thank you. And we, of course, look forward to hearing from you and learning from you in the times to come.
Allow me to just share with you what it says. It says, Award of Appreciation. We hereby honor Claudette Thomas with this gift in recognition for your 15 years of unwavering service and unmatched dedication and contribution to the records and information management profession as government archivist. Thank you. April 2024. All right, we can breathe. A little emotional moment there, but thank you so much. And that is coming from the staff at JARD, as you heard, with all their love and their blessings. And this, of course, you're probably looking on and saying, but she don't look like she's going anywhere. But this is against the background that in short order, she will be demitting office. All right? But we know she's not far. She's going to be just a phone call away. All right. And now to close this morning's this into afternoon's presentation, allow me to invite Ms. Kimberly Blackwin, Records Management Analyst, Government Records Center, Jamaica Archives and Records Department, to come to the lectern with the task of moving the vote of thanks.
Good afternoon. Distinguished guests, esteemed stakeholders, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of Jamaica Archives and Records Department, we want to acknowledge and thank the Lord who is the head of our lives. We express our heartfelt thankfulness in his absence to the Honorable Robert Nesta Morgan, Member of Parliament and Minister without portfolio with responsibility for information in the office of the Prime Minister. Your leadership and advocacy for information have been fundamental in advancing our efforts in this field. We extend our sincere appreciation to Dr. Paul G.C. Hector, Advisor for Communication and Information at the UNESCO Office of the Caribbean, for gracing us with his illuminating insights as the keynote speaker on Envisioning the Future, Records and Information Management in the Age of Climate Change. Dr. Hector, your address has offered a substantial comprehension on this subject matter. Your exploration on the impact of climate change on the future of records and information management has expounded the roles of RIM professionals with Sustainable Goal 13, which refers to climate change, and our role as RIM professionals as the Paris Agreement admonishes government to keep information on mitigation plans which will counteract challenges. Dr. Hector, also your illustration with Malcolm X's quote, "The future belongs to those who prepare for it today," is quite fitting. We appreciate your illustrations with the SWOT analysis, as we're advised to identify our strengths and weaknesses for effective records management in the age of climate change. Also, Dr. Hector, as a steward for communication and information, your insight on utilizing technology for embracing digital transformation and cloud-based storage solutions to enhance the resilience of record systems, and you also expounded on remote access in records information. You also, Dr. Hector, commented on the information of geographic information systems to aid in decision-making related to climate change, adaptation, and mitigation efforts. Dr. Hector, we accept your recommendation on educating ourselves on the Paris Agreement Treaty on Climate Change, utilizing strategic foresight for the future of records management, and also utilizing risk analysis and risk assessments for business continuity plans to ensure we safeguard records and information assets for future generations to come. We thank you. Special acknowledgement goes to the Chief Technical Director in her absence, Mrs. Nicola Ann Brown-Pinnock, and to the Principal Director, Ms. Sophia Wellington of the Information Division for their invaluable leadership and guidance. Their dedication, expertise, and commitment have been instrumental in steering our journey towards effective information governance. Our government archivist, Mrs. Claudette Thomas, we thank you for your leadership. Mrs. Nicola White, Marketing and Planning Manager from the Registrar's General Department, we thank you for your opening declaration. I express thankfulness to our esteemed Master of Ceremonies, Mrs. Marlene Stevenson-Daly, for guiding us through this event with grace and eloquence. Dr. Maria Smith, Program Manager at the Jamaica National Commission for UNESCO Office, we're grateful for your support to Dr. Hector. Special recognition goes to the members of the Archives Advisory Committee for their invaluable guidance and support. I must say a thank you to the Jamaica Information Service, JIS. You're always ready to support us when we seek assistance. We extend cheers for the delightful entertainment, which added a touch of excitement to our event. We wish to express sincere thanks to the invaluable staff of the Jamaica Archives and Records Department, whose efforts truly drive the success of our activities. Thank you for your dedication and commitment to excellence. We also extend a sincere thanks to all stakeholders in the records and information management field. I extend wholehearted appreciation to each and every one of you for gracing us with your presence today at this occasion, the launch of our Records and Information Management Month celebration. As we embark on this celebration, let us reaffirm our commitment to excellence in records and information management. Once again, thank you to each and every one of you for your presence and contributions. Let us proceed with renewed vigor and determination towards a future of excellence in records and information management. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you for thanking everyone and for doing it so well. Now, I believe we're at the end of our program, but I will have to share some information with you. Let me make sure I can get this right. You know you have a month of activities, and we've kicked off today with our official celebration, and we have done our offboarding of 4 entities. On Wednesday, April 10, we should be having the training of trainers, a RIM sensitization day. Let me make sure I'm getting this correct. RIM sensitization day, empowering organizations by enhancing capacity for reliable vital records management. On Wednesday, April 17, RIM So Bright, spotlight on MDAs recognizing notable achievements in the field of records management. And then there'll be RIM Trivia on the same day, engaging MDAs. I think this is a trivia competition with tokens for participation. Then on Wednesday the 24th, there will be the circulation of RIMzine, the distribution of specialized magazine focusing on RIM practices, innovations, and success stories. And then I believe there is an activity for Vision 2023 integration, and this celebration echoes the commitment outlined in Vision 2023, emphasizing the need for sustainable development through effective RIM by aligning with the SDGs 9, 13, and 16. And JARD's aim in this integration is to contribute to building resilient institutions capable of navigating the challenges that are being posed by climate change. And we invite all stakeholders to actively participate and to contribute to the success of RIM Month celebrations. And the call is for us to together navigate the future through effective records and information management. I hope I got everything in, Mrs. Thomas. I did? Okay. So, ladies and gentlemen, again, thank you so much for being here today. And you know it wouldn't be in keeping with our style if we didn't have a little special token for our keynote speaker, who has really poured into us today. So I'd like to invite him at this time to come to receive a token from us here in Jamaica. Please come forward.
Well, Dr. Paul Hector, on behalf of the Jamaica Archives and Records Department and all information professionals here assembled today, we'd just like to share with you a little bit of Jamaica, and we are also sharing a little bit of JARD with you. So when you leave, you will never forget us, because we really thank you for inspiring a new thought, a new direction as we move forward. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Thomas. And thank you once again, Dr. Paul Hector, for your insightful presentation. You've given us a lot to think about, and I know it will bear fruit. I was told by the PD that I left off my career day, so that's on the 11th of April. And we'll talk more about that. But thanks again, everyone, for coming. I know you've had a full morning, and I wish for you all that's good for the rest of the month in terms of your special activities that have been planned. And the Records and Information Management Month 2024 is, of course, a platform to inspire, to educate, and to empower individuals and organizations to harness the power of RIM in creating a sustainable and a resilient future. And of course, this is partly done by aligning with international development goals and reinforcing our own dedication to the promotion, innovation, combating climate change, and building strong institutions. I wish for you a wonderful day today, and I thank you for your time and your positive energy. God bless you. Go on out and have a fabulous month. Thank you, JIS. Please note, we do have refreshment next door. Hibiscus.